Okay, I think we are starting. I'm watching folks be admitted from our waiting room. Looks like we're up to about almost 80 people so far, so that's really exciting. Thank you all for being here tonight. Welcome to our annual public projects meeting. This is a meeting we typically have every year this time to talk about the immediate work that's going on in the park and is planned for the near future. And field work is our emphasis with this meeting. So with that, I'd also like to just have a quick housekeeping. We have everyone muted so that we can all hear. Earlier today, everyone who registered should have received a email with the link to submit questions. We'll have an opportunity for Q&A towards the end of the program tonight. So if you have questions, please feel free to submit them via the link in the registration confirmation you received. Okay. All right, here's our agenda. I'm Ruffian Tittman. I'm the Executive Director of Friends of the Wissahickon, and I'm so happy that you're joining us here tonight for our public projects meeting. We're going to talk a little bit about the principles that guide our work, give you a quick recap on the things we've accomplished, and then a quick sneak peek and information about both current capital projects that we'll be doing with our partners and contractors, as well as field work that our volunteers and staff will be undertaking this year. So again, welcome and thank you so much for being here. A quick intro to FOW. I know so many of you, when I was looking through the participant registration just now, are longtime friends, members, supporters, volunteers, park visitors. In case you're new and you're not sure exactly what FOW does, here's a quick recap. We've been in existence since 1924. We have over 3,000 dues-paying members and friends. We're an official park partner, and we undertake a lot of stewardship in the park that's both making the Wissahickon Valley Park and Creek cleaner and more accessible. So thank you again. And I won't read everything on the slide, but here you see 50 miles of trails and all of that great nature that we have. I wanted to take a minute to spotlight our staff who have worked so hard who work so hard all the time. But in 2020, in incredible challenges, pivoting an ambitious schedule from the field into a virtual world, coming back under new, more restrictive guidelines to get out in the field again. I can't thank them all enough. Here they are. Everyone does more than one thing, but we have folks who are managing behind the scenes, putting programs like this together, managing the money and raising the money, and then ultimately using all of that those great resources of both financial and human resources of our volunteers to get out in the park and do projects like we're going to talk about tonight. So a thank you to all of our great staff here. I don't think we can get away from speaking about the effects COVID has had on the work that an organization like Friends of the Wissahickon does. Our work for 2020 was supposed to be bigger and better than ever before, meaning larger groups of people gathered out in the field, multiple sites, working close together, and none of those things could happen. So we had to adjust. We've had an amazing turnout of volunteers that we'll recap on, working further apart, sometimes solo, sometimes with their pod of bubble friends. And that has really changed how we're looking at our work, especially as we are still under those same restrictions right now for everyone's health and safety. So we continue to adapt to that. And we'll talk a little bit more throughout this program tonight on what those adaptations were and continue to be. But despite COVID, the principles that guide our work when we think about what projects we undertake remain the same. And this is a slide that I presented last year, and that hasn't changed. The underpinning of the decisions we make on where we work is very strategic and planned out, usually several years, if not 5 years ahead of time, sometimes more. We're working still to complete the programmatic scope that was outlined in our strategic blueprint, originally envisioned as a 3-year plan concluding in 2020. We've decided to give ourselves a little bit of grace period and get all of those things tidied up through 2021. We are working in a framework of our ecological land management plan, which helps us think about where are those zones that we want to protect and enhance from a habitat perspective, and where are areas that we want to build resiliency to allow park visitors to continue to enjoy the space. So that's a key part of how we make decisions on our project work. For nearly 2 decades, the Friends of the Wissahickon has been working on our Sustainable Trails Initiative. And right now we are working through the completion plan of that project, a document that was created in 2018 that outlined 5 key projects to bring that initiative to a conclusion. And then we work closely with our partners, most particularly Parks and Recreation and the Philadelphia Water Department, as we make decisions in our planning process, especially when we're speaking about large capital projects, on where we can be of best assistance to our city partners. And I should say also that all these plans are available on our website, and if you have any issues finding them, we'll certainly be happy to help you. So reach out to staff and we can assist you with that. Okay, here we are. A look back at our 2020 capital projects. We did actually get something done in 2020, and it was the thing we said we were going to do. So that's a really great feeling. This is the Monster Trail project. It is one of those completion projects that was identified in the Sustainable Trails completion plan. And this work is on the Orange Trail. And this is also a great example of how we used the principles of our ELM plan to make a strategic decision that informed the work that we're going to do this completion project. So when looking at this alignment, and you can see the map, this is typically a trail that we might have considered closing under the principles of our Sustainable Trails plan. It's a fall line trail. However, all the additional alignments were taking us through some pretty good habitat that is a rarity in the Wissahickon and that we wanted to protect. Additionally, this is a well-loved trail for its challenges. It's fairly steep, and it also provides a pretty quick connector up and out of Forbidden Drive and into the hillside. So here we built for resiliency, and we're really happy with how the work turned out. COVID did still impact us with this. The work was originally supposed to take place on March 20th, just as everything was shutting down, but we were able to get out in the field in August and get this project done. PECO Green Region, National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, Philadelphia Parks and Recreation were our key partners and funders. The funding from PECO and National Fish and Wildlife. And Paul Steinbeiser was our contractor. So if you haven't been out to the trail and you're up for a vigorous hike, I encourage you to check it out. And I think we have a few more photos where we look at the improvements to tread. Here we have the erosion, surface erosion, a lot of rocky material coming up to the surface, making footings very challenging, exposing some infrastructure as well, and just basically not being a very pleasant footing for anyone to travel across. Without changing the alignment, we were able to armor the trail in some sections to preserve the surface, add some 14 stone infiltration basins to help handle the runoff so that it's not all just coming, eroding down the hillside and creating more problems. We additionally did substantial planting around the trail and these infiltration basins, and repaired and improved the existing drainage features on the trail. Monster Trail. Here we have a classic FOW volunteer labor project. This is the Quarry Loop. It's still under construction at this point. Should be wrapping up fairly soon. And this is in the sole of the shoe, as we refer to this section of the park, at the very southern end, on the other side of Lincoln Drive. This has been an underutilized network of trails, and so we were thrilled when a group of our trail volunteers, PPR, PWD, were all on board to improve the network here, both making the alignment more enjoyable for park users, including mountain bikes and hikers, but also making the area more sustainable and combating some trash dumping that had occurred in the area. And now you cannot have an FOW meeting unless you talk about the great work of our volunteers. And for this, I'm going to turn it over to FOW celebrity Sean Green, our volunteer manager.
Thank you, Rafian. Good evening, everybody. I hope you're enjoying the show so far. As Rafian said, 2020 was a very, very challenging year for everybody. And the volunteer operations were not any different. We had to get creative. We had to rethink our strategies to best steward the park. And thankfully, we have a very active and amazing community of volunteers. And we were able to accomplish quite a bit this year. So let's take a look at what we did. In 2020, we had over 7,000 volunteer hours performed by over 500 individual volunteers, which is really impressive. We ran 48 volunteer service days, and so we had to adjust those to smaller group sizes and implement COVID-19 safety measures, wearing masks and making sure people are keeping a safe distance. I'd also, at this point, like to give a shout out to David Bauer, who many of you probably know. He's our 2019 Volunteer of the Year, who led many of these volunteer service days. So let's take a look at some of the work that was accomplished. In infrastructure, the Valley Green Run footbridge was rebuilt by our structures crew. That is them in the photo on the bottom left. A little small. They're not wearing masks. It's one of the few photos that you're going to see in this slideshow where people are not wearing masks. That actually happened right before the pandemic hit. And whenever I look back at those, I think, simpler times. We cleared 67 downed trees from natural surface trails. To do that, we partnered with Philadelphia Parks and Recreation, and we were assisted by volunteer crew leaders. All 50 plus miles of trails had corridor and sightlines cleared, also by our crew leaders. We also had volunteers removing invasives, excessive soil, clearing drains, and general beautification at the Rex Avenue and Kitchens Lane bridges and many other high use areas in the park. In habitat, we removed over 10,000 pounds of trash from the park. And to do this, we launched what we called the WISA Heroes program. This was aimed to encourage individual self-led cleanups since COVID kind of hindered our ability to have the usual large seasonal cleanups that we would have. We reached out to individuals to head out on their own to do their own cleanups with family members, with people within their quarantine bubble. And it was hugely successful. Over 320 individuals took part in this, which was really, really impressive and inspiring. We planted 68 native trees along the Monster Trail, which we saw the work that was done, and we also put a whole lot of vegetation in there to hopefully stabilize the soil. We'll be back there again this year to put some more plants in the ground as well. We put 18 bluebird boxes in Andorra Meadow. We coordinated with James Tanner, who was doing his Eagle Scout project, and worked with us to do that, which was really fantastic. We installed a fence around the Wissahickon Environmental Center's new food forest orchard. So if you haven't seen it yet, make sure you go up and check it out. They're going to have a lot going on in the future. And then engagement, over 7,000. Wait, can you go back? Thank you. Engagement, again, over 7,000 volunteer hours, which is especially impressive for a pandemic year. Our trained trail ambassadors did 130 trail and outreach shifts, 17 walks and talks, both in person before the pandemic and then switching to a virtual format. And speaking of virtual, we also created the Virtual Valley on the FOW website, which is fueled by volunteer content. If you haven't checked it out already, make sure you go and explore. There's videos, games, stories, write-ups on historic points of interest, and a whole lot more. And so 2021, it's got to be a better year, right? And we are definitely planning on making it a hugely successful year. There's lots to get done in the park. So take this as my personal invitation to come and get involved with us. Through the year, we will have a lot of volunteer service days, typically on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and most Saturdays. So there's a lot of options there. You can check the dates and register to attend on our events calendar. These are adapted, as I said, to smaller groups with COVID-19 safety measures. And if the volunteer service days don't fit your schedule, be sure to check out the many ways you can be an individual steward, like doing a Wissa Hero cleanup, which will be continuing this year and into the future. And all that info is available on our volunteering section. And finally, if you belong to a group, either through school, work, a religious group, and are interested in organizing a private service project, reach out to me directly. That's my email, green@fow.org. We love connecting with other communities and doing a lot more great work in the park. So I hope to see some of you at our volunteer service days. I know a lot of people who are attending, so thank you for coming out. I hope to see you again in the future. And just a quick reminder at this point, if you have any questions throughout this presentation, check your email. There is a link in the confirmation email that you received that had the link to this meeting to submit a question, and we'll be going over those at the end. And now back to you, Rafian.
Thank you, Sean. All right, so this is what we're all here for, is the upcoming work, 2021. And let's go right to it. The first thing I want to talk about isn't directly any one project, but an investment back into our field crew for 2021. We were unable to field the field crew in 2020 due to COVID, and we're coming back with a larger crew than ever. We anticipate hiring at least 6 crew members, and they'll be working on both field work, including trash and cleanups, graffiti removal, drain clearing, corridor and sightline clearing on trails. They'll also be doing a lot of outreach. We hope to finally officially launch our Leave No Trace hotspot partnership with the Center for Outdoor Ethics this summer. We were supposed to do that in 2020. And we will also have field crew doing outreach on our busiest weekends, hopefully providing support to our park visitors, finding new places to park if parking lots are at capacity, recommending where to find a bathroom if one is available, and also directing folks to our app, which I want to make a plug for right now. If you don't have the app, you should download the app from the App Store. And this will provide all of our park visitors with a map handily right in their pocket. And just as Sean pointed out about the volunteers working on the bridge construction without masks, I just want to let everyone know that these photos are from 2017 and 2018 in the before times. So that's why no one is wearing a mask. Rest assured, our field crew will be operating under best practices for these times, for their own safety and for our visitors. So please be on the lookout when we post the job announcement and share it far and wide. We're really excited to have a larger and extended season for our field crew. Capital project work. These 3 projects I talked a bit about last year. They were planned and had grant funding, and we were getting ready to go out to bid, but had not awarded contracts yet. I'm happy to report that these first 2, the restroom facilities master plan and the Valley Green Run restoration and pedestrian bridge, were both put under contract in 2020. And are making progress right now, and I'll showcase some of that. The Lavender Trail Gully is moving along. We would expect a contract to be awarded to a consultant within the next month. So these are the three main projects that are going to see work in 2021, although the work that's happening on these is not going to be immediately visible in the park this year. We'll talk more about that. First one, very exciting, restroom facilities master plan. This project is funded through DCNR, and with great enthusiasm, we have a partnership with Parks and Recreation. We're going to be evaluating existing facilities and then also looking at where we might install one new facility as a demonstration project of this master planning effort. I also want to highlight here on the timeline that we'll have some public input opportunities in the early fall. Towards the end of the timeline here, you'll see first public meeting. At that point, we'll have some more information from the consultants, their research on what facilities exist, what condition are those facilities in, when are the facilities operational, what's the current maintenance schedule, and then where can we plan for more facilities. And part of this is also doing user counts through trail counters on the trails. And we'll also be doing some in-park surveys in the summer. And all of this will help us inform, in a park of this land size, with this known visitorship, how many restrooms should we have and where should they be and what type of facility could they be given the physical constraints of the landscape. So those are all of the components of the master planning process. And I'll be really excited to see some of you at those public meetings in September or October. Lavender Gully North. There's two of these gullies. One's the South Gully. We have funding for the North Gully right now. And this is one of the two, with the South being the other, largest sediment discharge areas into the Wissahickon Creek. We've been watching this gully form over the last decade. It's gotten substantially larger. It needs to be remediated, and we're hoping to be under contract soon to do that. These principles are the same as many of the other restorations that we've done over the last decade in the Wissahickon. We're looking where we can to restore the landscape so that we can create more infiltration. Where we can't achieve 100% infiltration, we're looking to achieve stabilization and slowing the water down so that we're looking to capture where we can't capture. We're looking to reduce the impact that that water has as it channels down to the creek to keep all of the forest soil from discharging into the Wissahickon. And right now we're excited, as an early phase of this project, we are looking at monitoring what's going on with the gully pre the construction that's anticipated to happen, utilizing soil monitors that also link up to the weather events and interpret what's going on in the ground in a more of a live setting. So our hope is that there'll be a website that the data from the monitors is loaded to, syncs with the known weather reports, and then also a component of volunteer service will come into this, hopefully getting photographic evidence during rain events when it's safe to do so, and really create a great picture of what's going on when the erosion is happening, which is during these storm events. Here's the project concept. Again, we're looking to stabilize the channel. We won't work on the entire channel with our contractor. We're looking to do some main areas of construction and then supplement that with additional plantings and work that we can do with our volunteers. But it's fairly typical of these where we're filling in the grade where we can, creating these areas of capture for the water, and then some step pooling of some type down through the gully to slow the water down, get some of the sediment out of it before it ultimately gets into the Wissahickon. All right, this one here is my favorite, folks. The Valley Green Run and Restoration Pedestrian Bridge. This project is our largest capital investment right now that we're anticipating to make. The full cost is a little over $1 million at this time and involves two simultaneous projects, really. We will stabilize the lower part of the Valley Green Run, and then we will construct a new pedestrian bridge opportunity to connect folks in a safe way down into the main part of the park from the upper parking lot on Valley Green, on the Valley Green Road side of the Valley Green entrance. That's a little confusing. So here we are. This project will run us through to the end of 2022 right now. Skelly & Loy is our lead contractor in partnership with CVM and Krieger Architects. Skelly & Loy will do the restoration of the stream and the engineering of the entire project. CVM and Krieger will do the design and construction of the pedestrian bridge. Right now, Skelly and the team have been out there doing the geomorphic stream surveying, the wetland surveying, and really planning for the restoration. And this is a complex project because the two things have to be designed and then ultimately built together. Once the stream is restored, we would never want to go back in and disturb everything to build a bridge. And we feel strongly that the bridge element is necessary to get that pedestrian traffic off of the road. It's also a wonderful opportunity to create the Wissahickon experience for many folks that perhaps don't get out into the upper trail system for whatever reason, whether it's accessibility or just comfort level. And I'm really excited to complete the restoration of this area in 2012. Friends of the Wissahickon with the water department and Skelly & Loy worked on the upper channel as well as the parking lot restoration there. So as one of our main entrances, really the front door to the park, where we see the most of our visitors coming, this is a priority and should be a wonderful new environmental and park visitor feature to the Wissahickon. We have some projects here of the landscape now. This is an old bridge that Friends of the Wissahickon put in 2004 as a temporary effort when the bank had collapsed. There used to be a trail. The trail eroded, the footbridge went in 2014 or 15, late 2014. This bridge reached its end of life. Don't walk on it if you see any pieces of it out there. Next slide. Here, looking down, you can see the old little bridge that was just upgraded by the structures crew early in 2020. And in case you're not 100% familiar about the area we're talking about, you can see Valley Green Road is coming down in Chestnut Hill. As you get further up, that's Springfield Avenue. And we have the upper parking lot, we have the bend in the road. Everyone, this is a very highly trafficked area, and getting pedestrians off of the street there is really a high priority. So to talk a little bit more about the bridge work, this here was an early sketch. We are right now waiting for some design concepts that will look at various options for what this pedestrian bridge might look like and what materials it might be built out of. This is then the channel restoration will be very similar to if you're familiar with the restoration that took place on the upper run large boulder step pools, again, that are really looking to, one, be resilient to the flow that's coming through, meaning the rocks aren't going to move, the construction will be permanent, and then resilient as well as being able to slow the water down and get as much sediment to settle into those step pools versus down into the creek. So to talk a little bit more about the bridge, ideas under consideration are a wood bridge on concrete piers, a similar concept adding in steel materials, and then a completely steel structure that would, or a steel supported structure with wood decking that would allow for more movement of through the space, meaning you're not confined to squares and rectangles when you start working with steel, because it can be formed in any shape that you can afford. Speaking of affording it, we do it through fundraising, and we'll be actively looking to use this area to recognize the enthusiasm that everyone has for the Wissahickon and create those touchstones through family generations and commemorating the love and the moments that people have had in the park, and supporting the work of the Friends of the Wissahickon, our volunteers and our partners at PWD and PPR. So this is a potential schematic as we start to have more designs and we look at what's available and what's possible. We'll most likely have some case statements and opportunities to discuss all of those things in upcoming spreads in our newsletter, which you haven't, if you're not on our e-news or newsletter mailing list, please go to www.fow.org and sign up. And then right now, happening in the park, and I mean very soon, on February 6th and 7th, we have a great team coming out from the US Air Force. They'll just be arriving by vehicle. They're not parachuting in, but that would be very exciting. And they're going to help us repair some footbridges along the Yellow Trail. And these are 3 small footbridges that Friends of the Wissahickons volunteers have worked on through the years, and their planks need to be replaced. And we're grateful not only to our great field team of Cindy LaRue, Varian Bosch, Sean Green, but also to the Red Horse Squadron for coming out to work with us on this. We'll have a quick trail closure. They'll be in and they'll be out, and that will be very exciting. And now this bird asks, do we have any questions? Do we, Sean?
We sure do, Ruffian.
All righty.
All right, let's get this started.
Let's get tweeting.
I'm going to paraphrase this one, but
Okay.
Dan says that he really enjoyed the engagement with the Lenni Lenape tribe that we had.
Yes.
He was curious if we have anything coming down the pipeline, partnering with them.
That is a great question, and we do. We don't have anything in the field work as far as the projects that we're discussing here tonight that we've specifically partnered with the nation on, but the communications team is working on some upcoming programming built out of that very well attended talk that we had in 2020. We're very excited to bring more specific topics, the Lenape language, opportunities to support the nation, programs and their initiatives that are coming up. So please be on the lookout. We will definitely have some more virtual programming with the nation this year.
Excellent. I'm looking forward to it.
Me too.
I have a question that I can actually answer.
Okay.
Todd, who is a scout leader in Winmore, was asking about looking for Eagle Scout projects. And this may have been submitted before I even started talking. So Todd, if you are still watching, you can contact me, green@fow.org, and we'll see what we can coordinate with you guys.
Excellent. We love Eagle Scouts.
Okay, let's see. Graham says that he loves the map app, as we all do. And He's interested in also having a printed map. Are those available, Rafian?
They are, Sean. Our fulfillment is a little bit slow right now, but we can get one out. So I believe if you go to FOW.org to the map page, we are still selling maps. And if I'm wrong about that, then you should email me and I will help you get that.
And just to clarify,
we did have some challenges with fulfillment in 2020 when
yes,
staff were out of the office, but we have a light rotation of folks in the office right now. So I'm sure we can get those maps out.
And to clarify, these are the newly printed maps with.
These are the newly printed maps with the
accurate,
updated alignments.
Yeah.
They are the pocket map. They're not the larger, not pocket map. So, but they do have all the updated information on them.
Okay. Another question, which I can also answer. Beth asks, will there be any effort to destroy vines that seem to be killing and harming trees? The answer is yes. Please volunteer with us. That is one of many things that we do. In fact, at the Martin Luther King Day of Service, that was primarily what we did, was vines. We took out close to 200 yard bags of invasive vines. So please come out with us if you're available. We've got lots more to do. Huge park, too many vines, but we are making our way through it and doing the best we can. Okay, we have some new questions. Hold on, I need to refresh. Question about trash cans. Amy asks, can trash cans be added to the top of Upper Valley Green parking area?
The simple answer is yes. So we are looking, especially as we bring the seasonal field crew in, not only at trash cans, but also at trash bags as people do their own stewardship and to clean up. The coordination of the picking up of the trash goes through PPR. And so the seasonal stationing of trash cans and the like is coordinated through them.
Mm-hmm. And we will be adding trash bag dispensers this year.
Yes, we will.
Okay, Erica says, thank you for the webinar. How often is the strategic plan updated? Do you get community input for it? And for individual, I guess this is a second question. Why don't you answer that and then I'll answer the next one.
Right. So we have done, in my time with the Friends of the Wissahickon, I've been the executive director for 1 year now, but I've been with the Friends almost, I guess this is mid of my 14th year. And so we're currently on our third strategic plan during that time. So they usually run 5 years. The one that we're working under right now was a shortened plan, a 3-year scope. And as I mentioned at the beginning, like many organizations, 2020 threw a loop in tying that up. So we're working through that this year. I anticipate we'll start entering into a new strategic planning process formally in 2022. And there'll certainly be community input times for that. And a lot of that will also be reflected in upcoming public meetings that are focused on individual projects or programming. So here we're talking a lot about the capital work that we're doing in the park, big and small. And in upcoming meetings, we'll be talking also about our programming.
Erica also had a question about individual Wissahickon cleanups. Do we provide gear and tools? And yes, we do. Check out we do have a page dedicated to that on the volunteering section for individual stewardship and cleanups. We made kits that have gloves, trash bags, and very fancy FOW face masks, and some instructions as well that are available for pickup at the Cedars House Cafe and the Paper Trail Bike Cafe.
Where's that for folks?
That is at Historic Rittenhouse Town. They had the unfortunate bad luck of opening this year during a pandemic, but they are fantastic. If you're at Historic Rittenhouse Town during the weekend, be sure to stop in, get a coffee, and say hello, and pick up a Wissahickon kit.
Excellent.
Here's a good question. Do you have a magic spell to remove poison ivy?
Well, no, I don't. Do you, Sean?
I don't, but I can say that because it was 2020, I started to develop an allergy to it, which before last year, I didn't have a problem with it.
Really?
Yeah. We typically don't do much with poison ivy, just FYI, because it is a native plant, unless it's growing into the trail. But if,
Right.
yeah, otherwise we don't really mess with that. Let's see. Has anyone ever written a history of the trail's development? Some of the trails look like they were originally roads, but for others, it is not so clear.
There's a comprehensive history of the valley by Carol Franklin and David Contasta, and I believe there are sections in this 4-volume book, Metropolitan Paradise, that covers, I believe, 1650 straight through to the early to mid 2000s. And it does talk about the trails, but as far as a consolidated history of all of that, just on the trails themselves, I don't think so. But for anyone who is very interested in an overview of the valley, the development of the park, and the neighborhood surrounding it, Metropolitan Paradise is a great resource.
Okay. I think we don't have any other questions to ask on this sheet.
I do see one,
Oh,
and this was a question I had for a long time about why are maps at some trailheads upside down?
oh, okay, I see that now. I'm still refreshing, and there's, I guess they're still coming in.
Okay, and that one is due to all of the kiosks are oriented for the visitor. So when we worked with Parks and Recreation on the maps on the kiosks, the wayfinding folks at PPR and wayfinding in general is to orient the visitor in a way that they're looking at them, that centralizes them in the view versus always having the map in the same direction. I always think of the Wissahickon in that kind of north-south orientation versus the long ways horizontally, but that's the reason for that.
Okay.
I'm also seeing questions about.
Do we need to raise more funds for to help with the influx in park visitors during the peak season?
Yes, we always need one. We always need more funds. Two, yes, that's something we didn't dive into too deeply here, other than when we talked about the seasonal field crew. But we've seen ever increasing visitation to the Wissahickon through the decades. 2020, we saw even more substantial visitation. And yes, in order to do things like have the seasonal field crew, put in seasonal restrooms, seasonal trash containers, and then have all of those serviced, it always requires funding.
Okay. And another reminder, in case people do have more questions, there is a link to the Q&A form in the confirmation email that you got for this program. So if you have questions, please submit the questions through that form.
I see a couple folks asking about things in or around Forbidden Drive, either drainage along the drive or trees that are over the drive. And a lot of this is work that would happen through PPR, the main stewards of Forbidden Drive proper. The gullies, as far as the channel next to the trail, PPR, FOW have worked on that through the years. Tree work is through PPR. They come through assess the trees, and if trees need to come down, they do come down. Of course, we've all seen trees fall, but the forest management of the big trees is really with PPR and beyond FOW.
There's also a question about, do we have any plan for volunteer efforts for spotted lanternflies? And
I think you do, Sean.
there is, and we actually, so if you check out the individual stewardship page on the volunteering section, there is one option that you can do when you're out and about. You can clean trash, you can ID plants, and you can smash spotted lanternflies and scrape eggs off the trees. And so there's some info on how to identify them. And there's also a link that you can record volunteer hours when you're out doing that. So please, if you see it, smash it. But just make sure that it's a spotted lanternfly and not a beautiful butterfly.
Don't smash the butterflies. All right. Let's see. I'm going to hit refresh and see if we have any other questions we haven't gotten to. Wow, people did a really good job submitting through the form. Thank you, everyone. A few more.
And there is a question.
Sean, would you ever consider, I know I'm going rogue here, would you ever consider some volunteer projects in the afternoon instead of always 9 to 12?
I would consider it. And yes, moving forward, I believe the David Bauer, who's been leading on Wednesdays, is considering switching to afternoons on Wednesdays. And as we get into the busier season, and particularly spring and summer, we will probably be offering afternoon and not just early morning.
Great. There's a few questions more on history, some regarding the Civilian Conservation Corps. Again, history is always a really popular topic, and I think something we will dive into more on future either Valley Talks or some other virtual programming we have. So that's me not answering a specific question about did the Corps themselves work on the trail. I'm not 100% certain on whether they were doing trail work or just the structures work in the park. So as some of those, the bridle paths predated the Conservation Corps. So lots to learn there. Then some general questions all over about damage to trails, either through specific park user type or storm. And one thing I would say to that is we've worked really hard over the last 15 or 20 years to make the trails more sustainable. In a park this size with this intensity of use, a lot of the decisions that have had to be made, we've kept trails open that do require stewardship to come back again and steward them because it's the only place where the trail can be. And so you will see, especially during rain events, if people are out there and it's muddy, and we do generally caution folks to perhaps not get out there in the mud and create impact on those trails. And, you know, as it gets muddier and muddier, people go around widening the trail and all of those things. I would encourage everyone, if you see something that concerns you, to please utilize our report a problem function. And it's most helpful to us whether you're reporting a downed tree or a trail issue or anything of concern, if you include a photo that has the geolocation turned on so that we can get out and check it out. So just another plug for reporting in. It's one of the great tools that we're able to bring to our partnership with the city, is collecting all of this feedback from park visitors and highlighting areas of concern. So please do report those in.
There's a question about applying to be a trail ambassador.
Yes.
And so, yes, unfortunately, that is being put off for a year due to COVID. Typically, we bring on we recruit and train in the winter. And this year, because of COVID, we're not doing it. We considered volunteer options, but so much of the training for trail ambassadors and crew leaders both really depends on in-person demonstration and training. So we are holding off on that this year, and we'll hopefully, crossing my fingers that things get better and we can get back to it early next year.
We're all excited for that. I know. I'd say, especially for folks who are interested in being in the crew leader program, to continue to just come out to our regular volunteer days when we have those available, so that you're building up your knowledge of the work we do is one way to get a jump start on that. And we will be back with a bang with our trail ambassadors next year, no doubt. This year, you had just trained a full class of folks, and then we had to shut down, Sean. So that was a challenge.
Yeah. So the last class of trail ambassadors basically missed their last in-person training. Yeah, there's a question about where do you report a problem? So if you go to fow.org/contact, then you will find info on how to report issues.
Great. I think that was the last question I saw. I'm going to hit refresh and see if I missed any. Nope, we got that one.
There's a question about the type of rock used in stream restoration. I think that is referring to what was used for the Forbidden Drive stream bank stabilization project.
What kind of the actual rocks that were used?
Yeah, if there was any way to use native schist instead of the sedimentary rock.
Yeah, so that is a great question. And I love the schist. The contractor, one of the contractors we work with, always jokes, we know you want the big sparkly rocks. The thing about schist, though, is it's very flaky, and it doesn't hold up as well in those areas where we're doing those boulder step pools. There's also not as much of it available of that size and type to do. So we do compromise when we have to and use the other large rocks. So yes, that's why there's, especially in those areas where you see the really, really big boulders, that they're not schist. Okay. What do you think? Who's still hanging in here with us?
How can I download the app?
How can you? You can go to the App Store and you search for FOW Map.
That would be for iPhones. If you have an Android, you will have to wait, though we do have it's still in development. It will be coming eventually. But so if you have an iPhone, you can download it right now in the App Store. All you have to do is search Wissahickon map, FOW map, any of that sort of combo, you'll find it.
And what I love about our app is we have the Google map that's labeled in the app, the outdoor map, and that will follow you around like you're used to with any map that has a connection. But if you don't have a connection, this app also provides essentially the FOW, the high-res PDF, as it were, of our existing paper map. And that's labeled Park Map in the app. And so you always have the map with you, whether you have a connection or not, as long as you've downloaded the app and that function onto your phone, iPhone. And that is also the reason why we don't have the Android yet. It wasn't providing the functionality to have an offline map for people on their phones, which is what we really want.
And more info can be found at fow.org/map app.
Map app.
Yep. Let's see. I think we've got time for one more question.
Okay.
Let's see. See a couple bathroom questions.
Okay. So what people like bathrooms? I would like to have more bathrooms in the park.
I like bathrooms.
Yeah, so when you have a park, a lot of times when people plan a visit, they would like a bathroom. And we would like to have a sense of, again, I think as I said in the earlier slide, we know there are existing restroom facilities in the Wissahickon. They're not always open. We're not always 100% certain of the service schedule. And then they're supplemented at times with seasonal porta potties. So the restroom master planning process is looking to get a handle on what are the conditions on the ground now. And then that will inform us being able to work with our partner at the city, Parks and Recreation, on how can we improve what's going on. Also looking at where are there gaps in restroom facilities existing right now. I know there can be a thought that if we provide amenities, there may be negative behavior associated with that. I think the master planning process is really looking at how do we provide the greatest service, and also part of providing the greatest service are those stewardship schedules, whether a contractor, the city, to make sure facilities are open and clean and ready to use. That's a long process. And, but we do have experience. Friends of the Wissahickon did the adaptive reuse of the Kitchens Lane facility in, I think, 2006. That guard shelter was adapted to be a composting unit. And then we also installed in 2014 or so, an additional composting unit, a 2-stall unit at the Wissahickon Environmental Center. So that's not to say that the resulting facility from, or the first resulting facility from the master plan would be a composting unit, but we are looking at those possibilities.
Okay.
Okay, we love toilets.
We talk about toilets way too much.
We do. When you work in the park world, you spend a lot of time talking about trash and a lot of time talking about toilets. So now everyone has with us here tonight. We still have 89 people with us here. That's so exciting. I thank you all. I think we've gotten to the end of our questions. Let's continue to be great friends here. If you're not already a member and you would like to be, please go to FOW.org and become a member today. We're running a great promotion right now, folks, for Valentine's Day. A beautiful shirt for a sustainer level contribution. That's our monthly giving program, but there's a giving level for everyone there at FOW.org. That's not the only way to be a friend. You can shout us out on social media. You can sign up to volunteer, any of those great ways, or a Wissa Hero on your own and pick up trash, whatever it is. Thank you so much. And we hope you all have a wonderful evening. You too, Sean, you have a wonderful evening.
You too, Ruffian.